Sail Disability Network Upper Peninsula logo. Picture of UP in orange with blue paint circle. Sail Accessibility Consultation Services Access for All logo. Green and blue words titled Access with exclamation point at end and for all underneath. A sail conversation with Merrie Carlock of the Michigan DNR and local leaders in Marquette County for accessible outdoor areas. 6 persons on screen in separate boxes. Sarah Pirikoski in office wearing blue sweater. Lucy Wilcox in home wearing red shirt and glasses. Merrie Carlock sitting outside wearing blue shirt with black cardigan. Bill Sanders in office wearing green button shirt. Lauren Luce in office wearing white and black striped shirt. Carol Falcher in office wearing black shirt.
I just want to say thank you to all of you for joining. Today is our ADA 30th anniversary outdoor panel about accessibility in the community for recreation environments and facilities. I'm Sarah Pirikoski. I'm the Executive Director of Superior Alliance for Independent Living, or SAIL, the disability network of the Upper Peninsula. So we're here with an awesome group of panelists. And I'm going to introduce some of you, but I'm going to have Lucy Wilcox introduce herself, as she's our mastermind behind this awesome panel of experts in our community.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm Lucy Wilcox, and I joined this effort of moving toward greater accessibility a couple of years ago with SAIL, and have found it just how invigorating. SAIL had done great work in reaching out and working with individuals, but there's a part of the point is I was allowed to start a second career, and it's just wonderful and fascinating, and that's why we've asked y'all to be here, because you've been creating accessibility in the state of Michigan for some time, many of you, and then some maybe a little more recent, Lauren. So Sarah, you're going to introduce people?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to start with Merrie. Merrie Carlock holds a master's degree in landscape architecture and a Bachelor of Science degree in natural resources from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. And go blue, I'm a Wolverine as well. She is a licensed landscape architect in the state of Michigan and a member of the American Society of Landscape Architects. She worked as a park planner and city landscape architect for 30 years. She worked on numerous projects to improve accessibility at parks, playgrounds, and public outdoor spaces. Merrie is the grant coordinator with the Department of Natural Resources, or DNR, for the Upper Peninsula, and has been in that position for the past 5 years. So thank you for being on our panel, Merrie, and welcome.
Great to be here.
Yeah, we also have Carol Falcher. Carol has a BS in marketing from NMU, 1991. She's worked with the Chamber of Commerce, Lake Superior Community Partnership, and Okanagan Trail Network, or the NTN, through her work with the Lake Superior Community Partnership. She works with the NTN. Work with the NTN got Carol involved in outdoor recreation. The Iron Ore Heritage Trail originated as a project of the NTN, but was too large a project for them to take on and became its own entity. Carol has been the administrator of the Iron Ore Heritage Trail for 13 years. Welcome, Carol, and thank you for joining our panel. We also have Lauren Luce. Lauren has her BS in environmental science from NMU. She has worked in parks and recreation throughout high school and college with the cities of Troy and Petoskey. She is currently a senior planner with Marquette County in the Planning, Forestry, Community Development, and Recreation Department. The county manages Sugarloaf, Perkins Park and Campground in Big Bay, and Little Trout Lake at Sawyer. Her work includes working on numerous recreation grant applications and recreation planning. Currently, she is involved with project of interest to the Marquette County residents, the major enhancement project at Sugarloaf Mountain Natural Area. She is also a board member with the Iron Ore Heritage Trail, and personally, Lauren is a user of the local trails and cherishes the vast recreational opportunities available throughout Marquette County. Thanks for joining us, Lauren.
Thanks for having me.
And we also have Bill Sanders. Bill is a licensed landscape architect and has practiced as a designer for site and building design projects in the Marquette area since 1983. He is currently a principal in the firm of Sanders and Chapsky Associates located in downtown Marquette. His firm specializes in landscape architecture, and historic preservation. Making a connection between people and place has always been a key element in his work. Bill says, I strongly believe that we must not be simple observers of a place, but should be participants. We should be touched in some way by the landscapes we experience, whether they are wonders of nature or built places. Achieving this goal is the most exciting and rewarding part of landscape architecture and placemaking. Welcome to our panel as well, Bill.
Yeah, good to be here. Thank
I
you.
wish I would have said that.
That had a great quote.
Sorry about
That
that.
was great.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Lucy, I'll let you.
So I'd like. You ready to let go, Sarah?
Go for it.
All right. So I just would like to also thank everyone for joining us and get going, and suggest that we maybe check in with Merrie first. And there is so much information that each of you have. I do want to say to our audience joining this birthday celebration that there is a full list of resources that is on our website where you went to find this panel, and you will be able to go at your leisure through some of that material. And so, Merrie, can you talk about, obviously you've got all the experience as a landscape architect, but can you address how you, in your role as grant coordinator, have been working with the DNR and with the state to have opportunities to improve accessibility?
Well, my tenure here at the DNR is relatively short. If you have been in our agency, there are many lifers there, as I call them, similar to where I was 30 years. So there's a lot of people that have been there a long time. But I work specifically in the recreation grant area, and that is really focused on local units of government and really assisting them on improving their parks and recreation opportunities and making them accessible. I think there was a big public understanding of accessibility as it related to getting into buildings, doorways, restrooms. Everybody's familiar with the modifications that have occurred in all the buildings that we live with. But at least when I came to the job about 5 years ago, there was less understanding that this also applied to parks and recreation facilities. So we've been working, we actually give more credit for things that go beyond the ADA, but everything that we do must meet ADA, and that is not always understood by some of our applicants, that you really have to have accessible routes everywhere, the parking, the equipment, and when a community is able to go above and beyond, and there we kind of leave it to the community and their designers to say, well, how can we make something that may not even have an ADA requirement accessible? Looking back at the DNR as a larger entity, of course, we have all the state parks and state forests. So they have set up what they call a team for accessibility, and they meet regularly and review projects. In fact, this afternoon we're looking at Wells State Park and their application for this year's trust fund on taking some old CCC buildings and repurposing them and making them so that they are accessible. So that's a great team. It has people from obviously the landscape design in the Parks and Rec division, but it also has people from the community and outside agencies that also sit on this board. And so they've done some great projects, you know, whether it's an accessibility mat to get onto the beach and into the water, or some of our waterfall sites, trying to make those accessible so people can get up to them, or all the accessible kayak and canoe launches that are going in across the state. So it's great to be a part of that activities.
And what project do you see? I know that, you know, this is, you're on the state committee to do this work, but what are you looking for moving forward? What are you hoping to see more of?
Well, of course, when you look at all of Michigan, we have many parks from the local to state to federal level. In Michigan, we're blessed with many parks, but that also means there's a great need. We can go to many of our facilities and they're not accessible. There's been a big movement for play areas, and that it's just very make something fully accessible, especially like manufactured play equipment is very expensive. So there's been a lot of investment in play areas throughout the state. We're looking for just any project that we touch, it at least must meet ADA. Unfortunately, we can't give extra credit for meeting the federal law, so that's required. But even that little bit, even just to make a site that hasn't been touched in 40 or 50 years and make that accessible, that's something that we, you know, we're blessed with. Grant money, both the trust fund and the recreation passport are unique to Michigan. And then we also have the federal land and water conservation fund that those funds are going up every year. So that allows us to come in and make these corrections and bring these sites so that everyone can visit them. What we're looking for applications is creative ways to go above and beyond the ADA. Of course, ADA is a big step for a lot of parks if you can't even get into the park. But then if the community shows us how they are doing more than what is required, then then we're able to give them additional points or credit. We changed our scoring this year. We're just getting into scoring right now for 2020 applications. So we really have a lot of additional money. I'm going to apologize for the jet going over, but we're looking for people that go, you know, above and beyond.
Okay. And as Merrie was speaking, because I don't see my screen, is there anything that someone in the Marquette panel wants to step out and focus on based on what Merrie was saying?
Well, I can step in a little bit. I would say the DNR and the grants have really focused on doing better than ADA and making us more aware of that. Because I think about when our project first started and some of the things that we did, and now we do them better because of the granting applications. So it gives us that awareness, and then we move forward with that. So maybe before we didn't have that awareness of how to do it, and now it's always there because it's standard in the grant applications. So I think from you know, getting an organization like yours, and then getting it to the DNR, which has the grants for these outdoor recreation projects. And then Bill's been on top of this for a long time too. So it just went from not many people thinking about it to, I think now everybody who does grant applications right from the start has to think about how do we become inclusive for everyone. So it really has traveled a long distance even since I've been here.
And would you share with us a bit of your long distance that you've been going with the Iron Ore Heritage Trail and kind of how you've connected with that?
Well, I think some of the first things is like when we first started doing the interpretive signage, we weren't thinking about how to make it readable. We weren't thinking about how you would get access to it besides just walking. I mean, so sometimes we had it out in the middle of, off the trail in grass area. So it's kind of like, then when we got granted from the DNR on 10 more signs, now we had to think about, okay, how does everybody read this sign? How do we make it clearer? How do we make it accessible? So as we went on, now our signs are much better for everyone. And so we make them more readable, so bigger fonts, more contrast, and putting a path down to make sure that anybody can get up to the sign and read it. So I guess that's first of my mind, because I'm on the trail a lot and I think about that and how I need to go back and do better on those first signs that we put in the ground.
I wonder if this might be a spot, Sarah, where we might show the clip that Carol shared, where there's an interpretive sign and they've done a video with American Sign Language.
Yep, absolutely. So give me 1 second, I'll share my screen, and you won't be able to really hear the person talking, but I tried to turn on the closed captioning so that you can see what they're saying. But we will also have these links available when so that people can go to those as well. So give me 1 second and I will show that.
Native and non-native plants. There are many remnants of the immigrant neighborhoods, home foundations, sidewalks, and streets. There is also vegetation that is not native to this region. The immigrants who migrated to pry out the iron ore brought seeds from their homeland, which provided known food and flavors to a new environment. French Canadians brought multiplier onions. The Swedes brought chives. The Italians brought garlic and grape. The English brought rhubarb, parsley, and parsnips. And the Germans brought horseradish and hops. Some persisted and thrived in their new environment. The most common non-native species you will find are lilac bushes, apple trees, lily of the valley, sweet peas, and periwinkle.
Great. Well, that's awesome. I'm so impressed with, and so maybe Carol, you can tell us how people can access those videos if they're out on the trails. Oops, I'm sorry. Cancel that.
Sure, we have them on our website, which is ironoreheritage.com. And then you go and look at history, our history page, and you'll find those on our history page.
And so, Carol, when I'm walking, I would have my phone with me and I would be able to access that at the given signage.
Right, so our signage has ironoreheritage.com in Braille. And then newer ones, we actually have the QR code so you can get right to our website from your phone.
That sounds like that's taken from planning.
So again, I wish I want to go back and make sure all of our signs have that opportunity for anyone to be able to have the same access to the stories, because I mean, the stories of the Iron Ore Heritage Trail are really, I think, what makes our trail unique.
Anything that Merrie or Bill, who's been involved with iron ore, want to add at this time?
I'll just say that, you know, the trails are one of the areas that usually are accessible just because they're in most cases minimal grades, not so much mountain bike trails, but a lot of the cross country regional type bike trails and that are also available to walkers and people in mobility devices. So and then the extra width that they typically have, 8 to 12 feet wide, that makes it very accessible, and also a nice separation from vehicular traffic. So we like to see those wherever they can come in.
This is Bill. Just a observation, I guess, but of course, the ADA being with us for 30 years is a good thing. But prior to that, there was the barrier-free code, and still is in the Michigan Building Code. But you know, when those code requirements first started to creep in to the Michigan Building Code, I think there was, at least, you know, working in the profession, there was a lot of response of, why do I have to do that? Or, you know, I mean, there was, I think there really was a great deal of resistance in the development community to the code. And obviously that's been around for quite a bit longer than the ADA, but I think, you know, the continued stringency of that code to address accessibility issues, and then certainly the ADA has made maybe the code public to people who wouldn't necessarily be building something, but then it helped build their awareness. So we see a lot less of that, why do I have to do this sort of thing, those kind of comments. We see clients more addressing accessibility right from the get-go, that it's a goal of their project. And, you know, the leadership from the county, the folks on this screen, certainly the DNR has been a huge part of that. And like Carol said, you know, now people are talking about, what can we do to make our projects accessible? I mean, it's no longer a code, it's a given. And that's really, I think that's really kind of one of the big legacies of the DNR Recreation Grant Program, because they have absolutely changed people's thinking.
I just want to step in too on that. Like when I first came to the DNR, and of course I had been just involved with my own projects and getting grants for my community where I worked, but then coming here and seeing all the other applications, when we started reviewing site plans, I would notice that they would build the pavilion or play lot, and then no accessible routes. The parking might have been existing, but there was no thought about it. I mean, I still see that sometimes, but before we would just say, well, we'll take care of that later when they do their plans and specs. But now we actually go in and say, if they don't have accessible walks, we add them, and we pull the money out of the thing that they were going to build and make sure that it's there and on their site plan from the beginning. So they understand right from the beginning that everything has to be accessible. And where we used to accept, maybe we're going to do that outside of the grant, the accessible walk, and it's like, it has to be a complete project. We need to be able to check that at the end to make sure everything's accessible, and it needs to be on our list of scope. So that's been a change in how we review the applications as well, just to meet the minimum standards. And of course, where we have some topography and stuff, there are different situations and things can be handled a different way. Obviously, topography is great and exciting and wonderful when you're in nature, but like Sugarloaf Mountain, we can't always get to the top, but the county has looked at other alternative methods for people to see what's up there and still make the base of the site accessible for the public.
What a wonderful lead in, Merrie. Thank you so much. Because I think, Lauren, you have a lot of exciting news to share with us about your work with the county.
Yeah, I do. Sorry if there's a lot of background noise here. I'm in a shared office. But yes, we are currently, and I don't know, maybe another kudos to Merrie and the DNR, because like Carol said, you know, through DNR applications now, it's really, you know, above and beyond what you can do to make things accessible. And I've learned a lot in my 5 years with the county and through working with Bill as our prime professional on these projects. I think another thing about accessibility too that I've learned through probably mostly Bill, you, is that just what exactly that means. And it doesn't necessarily just mean, you know, wheelchair accessible. Like there's a lot of different ways to make things accessible. And I've learned a lot about that in my time here and working on recreation projects. As far as Sugarloaf, you know, I don't think Sugarloaf necessarily portrays accessible by nature, but over the past 30 years or so, the county has done a lot to try and make it more accessible. Just the start back in the 80s, the addition of the structures, the stairs going up. Not long after that, handrails were added to all of the stair structures. And since then, small projects along the way. We have a big one right now that is funded through a DNR trust fund grant of making an accessible picnic area at the base with picnic tables. And then big part of that project is a webcam at the summit. It's not, the thought of getting everyone to the top of Sugarloaf is hard, but one thing we thought that we could do is install a webcam, so at least everyone will be able to take in the view at any given time at Sugarloaf.
And so that accessibility portion, that picnic area, that's in the works right now. And then my understanding is there's a second phase that you're hoping to move into. Can you speak to that, you and Bill?
Yep, yeah, the picnic area is actually in. It's there, there's picnic tables. It's getting finished up right now with the trash receptacle and bike rack and everything, but there is an accessible pathway to picnic tables now. There's a second phase of the project that is going to be starting this year. Bill is also the project, I guess, prime professional project manager on that one as well. We'll be installing a new parking lot to the south of the current parking lot, and also expanding the current parking lot. In that there will be accessible spaces included in both parking lots. Sugarloaf, as you all know, it's a landmark destination. It's busy. We saw 60,000 people last year, and the parking situation is getting unsafe with a lot of people parking on the County Road 550. So yeah, we'll be putting in that lot, and that should be completed by the end of this year.
The end of this building year, or the end of the building season in 2021?
This year, 2020.
How exciting. And maybe Lauren, you and Bill can talk about the incredible coordination that has required with the different county, I'm thinking of the road commission, and it's a very challenging area to be working in.
Yeah, before this project really got kicked off, one of the first things we did was set up an advisory committee of stakeholders. Lucy, you were involved. We had the townships surrounding Sugarloaf involved, the road commission, the county, just so everybody was on the same page to start. Makes the project go a lot smoother when you just start out working together. So it's been a really good project, and I think so far it's went pretty smoothly. Phil, maybe you can add some on that.
Thanks, Lauren. Actually, as you were talking about Sugarloaf, it occurred to me that that's really kind of the poster child of, you know, how projects should be viewed from a design standpoint. So I think somebody once said that the good thing about the United States is that we have the ADA, and the bad thing about the United States is that we have the ADA. And what I mean by that is, you know, designers take the book and they look at the standards and they check off the things that are listed in the standard, and we're good to go. And what they don't do is they don't look around them, and they don't see, you know, how people are faltering in their wheeled walkers as they hit big control joints and sidewalks and things like that. You need to observe how people interact with their environment. So if you look at the code book, Sugarloaf, you've done all you need to do to make that accessible. But accessibility isn't just the standard for wheeled mobility devices. It's things like adding the steps. So that opens the mountain up to a group of people that can't scramble on the rock, but they can negotiate stairs. Putting the handrail in opens it up to more people. So as you make improvements, which is outside the code, you're making it accessible to more people. And I think that's really the key thing, you know. And Lucy, you talk about beyond the ADA. That's what I think beyond the ADA means. I mean, the ADA, the code, you know, that's all baseline stuff. And Merrie explains that to people at the rec grants workshops every year. You know, that's the baseline requirement. It's the law. But, you know, if we can just understand how these little things can be done to make things more accessible to more people, that I think is the cool thing about Sugarloaf, and really is kind of a big goal. So I always talk about accessibility does not mean inclusion. Accessibility is taken care of. We got the code, you know, just follow it. But the inclusion part requires people to think a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any comment there, Carol, that you were reaching for?
I just agreeing, because it's absolutely that, to think above and beyond of what is in the law, and how everybody is going to have access. And maybe they won't have the same access, but like Lauren said, it just opened up to more people now. And now you're building a bigger parking lot because you did open it up to more people, and more people are using it. So that's a good thing.
Lucy, if you don't mind, I do have a quick comment as well. Like I just so appreciate, you know, everyone's with that mentality. And I think one of the things that we've worked on at SAIL, and Lucy's obviously worked really hard on, is trying to engage people that live with disabilities into that conversation as well, to give that feedback, to give that suggestion, to tell you and show you what that is for them. Obviously, a person with a disability is not the same as the next person with a disability, and they are, you know, they are the experts in their needs. And so it's really important to kind of rope that group into as well. And I think all of you are extremely open to that concept. And so, you know, from an organization standpoint, we so appreciate, you know, involving people with disabilities in those conversations as well.
Absolutely. And I believe that why the ADA legislation is so important, and, you know, why to celebrate and why to look forward to 30 more years is that, Bill, your point, and Merrie, that now, you know, people can focus on inclusion, and we still have the protection of the law when people haven't focused as clearly on individual accessibility as well as the notion of kind of universal design and inclusion, which broadens accessibility to the whole population, whereas the ADA is saying, you know, we need to just be sure to continue to focus for individuals living with disabilities. And I wonder now we have some time if maybe looking forward, what kinds of hopes and dreams do each of you have about, and it may well be this, you know, continuing to keep the ADA as a baseline and you know, moving forward on more inclusion. Are there areas that we haven't done as well on that you'd like to see more focus on? Any takers?
Well, I'll jump in. Just, you know, with our step has always been to be above and beyond. So then that's when we get into universal design. And I think if someone looks at our application booklet, there's kind of a list of priorities for inclusive design or universal design that is above and beyond. It's also supposed to be more or less invisible, so that you're not separating, here's the ramp and the steps are here. You know, you're trying to say everybody uses the same thing. That's particularly important in play environments where, you know, everybody, the kids want to all play together regardless of what their disability is. With adults and children, there's disabilities that are physical, and then there's, you know, maybe something that there's just such a wide array of disabilities that people may live with. My brother, you know, had a stroke, and so that was a whole set of things that we lived with, and just being elderly. My mother was 96, or we're working at this play lot in this area with both trust fund and land and water grants, that the girl has a specific type of condition that she was born with. And so there's a lot of, you know, there's a set of things with that. There's the autism spectrum, blindness, and, you know, you just have to open your eyes to see the wide array, and how can we address those so that everybody can participate with their family. Everybody's in a family. So, and particularly in recreation, that's something that you do with your family. So that's how we look at it.
I think about when I do interpretation of getting all the senses involved. Right now, you have to see to read the sign, or you have to see the sign language. So how can I incorporate feel, touch, hearing? You know, and we're in a pretty winter climate up here. We have winter for a long time of the year. So for me, it's always been a struggle of what can I do outdoors, especially for sound. That's going to work. But I would incorporate that into our interpretation.
And Lauren, what would you add?
I think for us, yeah, just having it in the front of our minds all the time. What we've noticed recently, we had submitted previously for a grant to do improvements at the Big Bay Harbor. And I think this year, before we were unsuccessful in that grant, but before we resubmitted it this year, we kind of gave it a once over and decided, well, maybe we should actually do, you know, a full master plan of the harbor first to kind of evaluate and identify areas where we're lacking before we're putting these things in. and maybe get that, committee together again and get the input, especially locally in Big Bay, where we have a lot of coordination with Bay Cliff. So that's, one thing that we've been doing is trying to maybe do some additional planning ahead of time and get those committees together and get greater input before we do a project.
That seems to be a very good idea, Lauren, and of course, and Bill knows, because I live out here in Big Bay, it's a topic that we are passionate about here, the harbor and Perkins Park, and we do have a lot to share with the county, and as you point out, very importantly, Bay Cliff. And as part of our celebration, we will have a day where we have some videos from Bay Cliff about their kayak program, and we're hoping that we'll actually have a copy of their virtual 4th of July parade, because we're a little sad here in Big Bay to not be able to have the annual 4th of July parade. And so, Bill, where would you, what's your dream? What's your hope for the next years coming?
Well, I think it's really advocacy is going to be what gets the message across, for folks to think about the detail of inclusion rather than accessibility. And the folks on this call, I mean, you guys are doing a great job of that. I mean, a 47-mile accessible trail is a pretty amazing thing, that the Heritage Trail has done. And they brought art to folks that are on the trail and history and all those kind of things. I guess, everybody's sort of got their little touchstone thing that makes them interested in accessibility. And we did a little ramp project at our church a few years ago, and one of the young women in the congregation who uses crutches, to get around, sent a letter to the council and said, "Thanks for doing this project for people like me." And that really struck me. People like me, somebody standing on the outside looking in. It didn't take much to include them. And so I think maybe it's just that advocacy. You can't write it in a code. You can't make people care, but you can lead them there. And I think that's really kind of the key thing. So that's what I'd like to see more of, I guess.
Oh, thank you for putting that so well. And I believe that's what at SAIL we've been talking about, and part of this celebration is wanting to help, and Sarah, I think, called it correctly. She talked about accessibility and advocacy as twin sisters. We need both. And I also just want to share a personal experience that I've had during this panel, which is somehow, Merrie, I think in what you were saying and some of what Bill was saying, that the ADA, if you just follow the letter, you may actually wind up increasing segregation because you have a ramp off to the side, or you have something amended that is just for this type of individual with a disability, rather than really talking about how are we going to make this whole environment include generations of people, you know, generations of types of people. And that's a wonderful, wonderful thought. I wonder, Bill, you were really gracious and suggested that we show the video of the lovely trail that was done. And I won't say it correctly. Sarah, do you think we have time to cue that up?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a little over 5 minutes. 5 minutes. It's from the Okanagan, I believe that's how you say it, Falls. It's in the Bruce Crossing area. It's in the Ottawa National Forest. And Kristen Ojanimi, I believe I'm saying her name right, has agreed to allow us to show her video of that trail opening. And Bill's handsome face will be on there as well. So I think if you would mind, I'm going to cue that up. It's like I said, it's about 5 minutes long. So I'm going to mute myself and get that shared screen up here.
We all know the Upper Peninsula is home to some of the most beautiful places on Earth. That's why we live here. Millions of acres of forests, miles and miles of scenic trails, and waterfalls galore. In many places, these trails and waterfalls aren't the most easily accessible for everyone. Now there is one spectacular waterfall that is a little easier to get to.
There we go. Well done. It's a beautiful fall UP day. We couldn't have picked a better day to enjoy God's beauty.
Today is a very exciting day for the North Country Trail, the Peter Wolf chapter. We've got funding that we were given to reroute this trail from US 45 down to the Okanagan Falls and the big bridge over the Baltimore River. It's about a 1.5 mile walk. That used to be a clay-filled, muddy, slimy, slippery walk. It was a very difficult trail to come down here, and it's such a popular trail that it was very difficult to come down here. People would lose their shoes because it was so sticky and slippery. So now it's a beautiful, easily walked trail with aggregate gravel and a lot of boardwalks and a couple of little bridges. It'll be real easy to come down here with your family now. People had switched to doing this a lot in the wintertime because it was such a slimy mess in the summertime.
I'm one of those who hikes out here more in the winter to avoid the clay and mud. Okanagan Falls, also known to some as Baltimore Falls, is located off Highway 45, about 8 miles north of Bruce Crossing in the western UP. It's within the Ottawa National Forest on a section of the North Country Trail.
You know, you've got thousands of miles of trail that run from North Dakota all the way to Vermont, but this section is very special because of the fact, you know, some of the trails have better access to the major roads. This one's got great access, and it's going to get utilized more frequently by a myriad of people, which then the more people that know about it are going to hopefully go to other sections of the trail.
It's just a changed environment out here. Also, just because of that work, it really helps to protect the resource. Before, because people were trying to avoid those not very friendly areas, they would do damage, and it just kept spreading and spreading and spreading. And so now it can be contained, people can stay on the trail. It's just really a win-win all around. I think it has made a lot of people proud and a lot of people very, very happy, which is wonderful when that happens.
We worked on the trail through the summer and fall design-wise of 2018, and this summer 2019 the contractor WR Construction from Negaunee was hired to actually do the improvements on the trail. Between all of the rain and the muddy ground, it was quite a challenge for them, but I think they did a really nice job. So it was a real partnership. It was a cool thing between state, federal, and local groups working together to really do something cool here.
It was definitely an all-hands approach, and because of that, it's just been so successful. There were different funding sources that were used to do the improvements on this trail. The Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund, the Iron Bale Trail Program, National Forest Service Challenge Grant Program, and then also the Ottawa National Forest. And all of those contributed different types of money and labor in order to make this happen.
Now that the trail has been improved, I can see myself walking out here more often in the summer and fall months, and I hope other people will too. The more time you can spend enjoying the outdoors here in the UP, the better.
This is about the physical health, but also the mental health that spawns from the physical exertion and the sounds of the falls behind us and the smell of the woods here in the fall. I mean, this is who we are as human beings.
Today there was a gentleman who hiked the trail who had developed accessibility issues and could no longer come here, who came here many times prior to that, and today he was able to come back out here. So that's really the goal, and that's really the reward, that people can visit places like this that otherwise wouldn't be able to.
Okay, so thank you so much, Bill. That was a fantastic video. I want to go there. I didn't know that existed, so now I'm excited to go take a trip out there.
I wonder, yes, thank you, Bill. And I guess maybe just checking in with you about any comments about that accomplishment and kind of how that happened. Pretty impressive.
The one thing that I think really came out of that, other than just the access to the site, is that one of the requirements of the grant is that there's a ribbon cutting when the project's completed. So we use that as an opportunity for advocacy. You know, certainly it was good having Congressman Bergman there. Others were invited, but at the last minute couldn't make it. But anyway, those folks are involved in decision making all the time. That can affect accessibility and funding for programs like the Recreation Grant Program and those sorts of things. So it's always good that they get to see, you know, that these programs that are important to outdoor recreation and accessibility for everybody get to see that. And I think that was the big win that day. So the next time legislation crosses their desks that affects that, maybe they'll remember that hike in October and vote for those programs.
Very useful feedback and a really good idea to make sure that is done. Do we have time, Sarah, to do one kind of go round, just asking each panelist to share a wrap up?
Yeah, please do. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, why don't we go back to Merrie and then to Carol and Lauren and Bill, kind of the order that we started in.
Well, it's been great to be part of this. I'm excited. I'm excited someday to be able to see you all in person again and not on a Zoom platform. But yeah, I'm excited because we have these grant programs in Michigan, and we also have within the DNR a huge commitment from the director, and the PRD, Parks and Recreation Division, Ron Olson, to make these things happen for our state properties and within our grant program, our trust fund board and recreation passport, and also the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which, by the way, yesterday passed the Senate for permanent funding. And I think there was even a tweet in support of it. So I'm not sure if it has to go through the House too, but that's great progress, and hopefully that'll make it through to law. So There's a lot of understanding, I think, with the COVID crisis of how important recreation is, and it's important for economies, especially the UP. It's important for the public. That was the one thing that everybody gravitated to, so much so that there's crowding problems because of the beaches and the trails and everything are so popular. And as soon as we're all able to get on the road again, I know that we will be back up in the UP, and it's an important economic development thing. And this inclusive and universal design is all part of that, to make it accessible to families. I did want to say something about the Okanagan Trail. When that application came, it was kind of through a different application that I finally did a site visit, and they told me to wear, mud boots in the middle of July, and I thought, why do I have to wear mud boots? It's July, it should be dry. And I was up to my ankles in the mud, and as I was leaving, and it's quite a hike in, Bill, I don't know how far it is, but a couple miles maybe. I saw a family that had little kids with brand new cute little shoes, and a grandmother who was kind of tottery a little bit, and I was like, and the parents, and I looked at their footwear and their capacity, and I was like, oh, this is a project that really needs to happen. And so that's done now, and we can all be proud of that.
Oh, thanks, Merrie. That was a wonderful summary and a reminder of how fortunate we are to be in Michigan. That is for sure. And then Carol.
I don't know if you're going to hear me. I have a lot of construction outside my window right now. I would just say having a good engineer on staff, like Bill, has meant the world to us, because I think he thinks beyond what, I know he's pushed us further than we would have done ourselves. So for that, I'm grateful. One of the new projects we're doing this year is accessible fishing up the Carp River. So having accessible piers. And I know I go by there and I see a guy and his son fishing all the time, but they're both healthy. They walk down the embankment, they can get to the water, but not everybody can. So now we're gonna have these accessible piers that they can just get off from the trail and have access to the water from there, as well as accessible bird watching platforms and weather shelters. But that comes from Bill thinking above and beyond, I think, than sometimes we do ourselves. So thank you, Bill. I just had to put that in there. And the other thing that just really opens my heart is we have a guy that lives in Nagani. He has Charge syndrome. He can barely see, he can barely hear, and he doesn't have good mobility. And his mother bought him a bike where they're side by side, and they go on the Heritage Trail every day because they can. And it gives him a better life. That just says it all. So
it does.
Emotional thinking about it.
Yes, yes. Well, this is really life-giving work, isn't it? Lauren.
I don't know how I'm gonna follow any of that up, but I want to say thank you to all of you. It's special to live in Marquette County, where there's so many people, thinking about this, and I think there's a lot of good teamwork that goes on here. We have a couple projects in our hopper too. One that we've applied for this year, and that's the playground at Perkins Park. There isn't really a big playground in Big Bay, and so we have this. The county has this vision and to make this big accessible playground at the park. And hopefully it's something that the whole community can use, not just campers. We can partner with Baycliff on that. We have a couple other projects in the works, some yurts that are going in at Perkins Park. They'll be accessible with ramp access as well. Just this harbor master plan that we're planning on doing. Some of the projects involved in that would be another accessible kayak launch an addition of a new pier that would be ADA, compliant. And yeah, I just want to thank all of you. It's great working with all of you. I think I've learned a lot. I'm definitely the newest to this scene, so thank you for guiding me.
Well, thank you, Lauren. I know that the planning session that I joined about the Sugarloaf project was really informative, and that your talent certainly helped people who aren't as savvy with technology to really be able to see and understand what you were up to there. And so Bill, where would you like to end today?
Well, I think it's nice having someone so young like Lauren on this panel and interested in these things. She reminded me the other day that she wasn't born yet when the ADA came through. It made me feel quite old, Lauren. Thanks for that. But anyway, it's really I think everybody's job to change the way people think, and maybe when the ADA was enacted 30 years ago, and certainly when a lot of these codes came into place, there was quite a bit wrong with the world, accessibility-wise. And I think we've really fixed a lot of that. I mean, we've made enormous progress for accessibility. So now I think this next phase, there's a lot right with the world, is sort of the way maybe to look at this. And we're just adding some little tweaks here and there, and just, it's maybe part of a social commentary too, think more about the folks standing next to you that maybe don't have it as easy as you do, what little things you can do to help make their world better. And certainly with outdoor recreation, I mean, for me, that's really where it's all at, and there's a huge benefit for people being outside. And to the extent that maybe more forward thinking can provide access to those things for everybody, I think that's going to be good for everyone.
Just thank y'all so much. It's really been an honor and privilege to share this specific time with you, so that we have an opportunity to share you with our community across the UP. And just, I so appreciate your giving your time to this opportunity. Sarah, is there anything that you would like to add?
Yeah, I'm grateful to live in the Upper Peninsula, to be part of, this type of people that are so interested with partnership, support, and just passion for helping everybody get, opportunities that, may not have had those in the past. So thank you so much. You're just a delight to listen to, and I'm super excited to be able to share this as well. And thanks, Lucy, for organizing this and really kind of, being the driver of getting everybody engaged. So I appreciate that as well.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Well, thank you. And we will have all kinds of resources available for people who've been sharing this today. And so be sure to look at our website and also our Facebook pages. And we'll call it a wrap.
Yeah. Thanks again. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.
Sail Disability Network Upper Peninsula logo. Picture of UP in orange with blue paint circle. Sail Accessibility Consultation Services Access for All logo. Green and blue words titled Access with exclamation point at end for all underneath. www.upsail.org/accessibility/.